You've earned an AWS certification. Congratulations! Now what? Show your employer, colleagues, and your customers that you've met the bar set by AWS experts. Add your digital badge to your professional profiles and email signature to highlight your skills. Share it on your social feeds to celebrate with your network. And offer verification via email or on your resume. Cloud skills are in demand, and you have them. Share your AWS certified achievement today.
I'm from Singapore.
From Vietnam.
AWS User Group Thailand.
I'm an AWS community builder.
I run the user group in Singapore as a community hero.
I'm an AWS community builder.
Love AWS community.
Go AWS.
I'm so proud that all the group members are very proactive to support each other.
I'm really passionate about making artificial intelligence and machine learning more accessible.
I'm also one of the AWS machine learning heroes around the world.
It's a global, positive and diverse community.
ผมเป็น Amazon Web Service Community Hero ประจำประเทศไทยนะครับ
The love of the technology and the friendship in the community.
Go AWS.
Hi, I'm Zian at binabati ko po ang ating mga manggagawa ng Happy Labor's Day. Saludo po kaming nasa Vote Report PH sa inyong lahat. Speaking of manggagawa, walong araw na lang at halalan 2022 na. Kaya dapat siguraduhin natin na ang bawat boto ay mabibilang ng maayos o walang anomalya o pandarayang mangyayari sa ating mga balota. Ilan sa mga anomalya na pwede niyong i-report sa amin ay errors ng voting machines, pre-shaded ballots, at pati na rin vote buying o ano pa mang pangangampanin na mangyayari sa mismong araw ng halalan. Bawal ang mga yan. So how do you become a reporter? Para mag-report ng kahit anumang anomalya o pandarayang may connection sa election, maaari kayong mag-text sa amin. Send yes or send in your report using the format report, space, content of your report to these following numbers. Pwede rin kayo mag-email sa votereportph@cp-union.com. And guys, let's be responsible keyboard warriors. Gamitin ang mga hashtag natin, VoteReportPH at Contradaya. Or di kaya mag-fill up ng form sa aming website that will be linked in the description below. O diba? Ang daming ways. Kaya kung may nakita kayong something sus, i-report nyo agad sa amin. Karapatan natin bumoto bilang isang Pilipino malaya sa bansang may demokrasya. So let's vote wisely, and most importantly, let's vote safely.
Hi, I'm Emma from the AWS Account and Billing Support Team in Sydney. Sometimes customers ask me what is included in the AWS pre-tier and how they can use the pre-tier. Today, I'm going to talk about what you can use in the AWS pre-tier. Let's get started. As you can see, I'm on the AWS pre-tier website. The pre-tier is automatically activated for each new AWS account and it lasts for 1 year. While the free tier is active, you can try out many AWS services for free, which gives you the flexibility to experiment and see if AWS is right for you. Let's go through a few services covered in the AWS free tier. 750 hours of Amazon EC2 Linux, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, T2 micro instance uses. 750 out of Amazon EC2 Microsoft Windows Server, T2 micro instance uses. 5 GB of the standard storage S3. 750 hours of Amazon RDS single AG MicroDB instance running MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, Oracle BYOL, or SQL Server Express Edition. Please note that not all AWS services are covered under the free tier. Check the free tier offering to make sure the services you intend to use are covered. Here are some of the free configurations that we receive from AWS customers. When does the AWS free usage tier expire? The AWS free usage tier expires 12 months from the date you sign up. When your free usage expired, or if your application use exceeds the free usage tier, you simply pay the standard pay-as-you-go service rate. If I don't use all my free usage per month, will it roll over to the next month? No, the AWS free usage tier is applied to your monthly usage, will expire on the first day of the new month, and does not roll over to the next month. How do I know how much I've used and if I've gone over the free usage tier? To see your current and past usage activity by service and region, please log into your Billing and Cost Management dashboard page. Then select Bills in the Billing console. To see your current and past usage activity by service and region, please log into your Billing and Cost Management dashboard page. You can type Billing. It will take you to the Billing and Cost Management dashboard page. Then select Bills in the Billing console. To see previous invoice, select the drop-down menu next to the date. Thanks for watching and happy cloud computing from all of us here at AWS.
Hi, I'm Zian, at binabati ko po ang ating mga manggagawa ng Happy Labor Day. Saludo po kaming nasa Boat Report PH sa inyong lahat. Speaking of manggagawa, 8 araw na lang at halalan 2022 na. Kaya dapat siguraduhin natin na ang bawat boto ay mabibilang ng maayos o walang anomalya o pandarayang mangyayari sa ating mga balota. Ilan sa mga anomalya na pwede niyong i-report sa amin ay errors ng voting machines, pre-shaded ballots, at pati na rin vote buying o ano pa mang pangampanan na mangyayari sa mismong araw ng halalan. Bawal ang mga yan. So how do you become a reporter? Para mag-report ng kahit anumang anomalya o pandarayang may connection sa election, maaari kayong mag-text sa amin. Send yes or send in your report using the format report, space, content of your report to these following numbers. Pwede rin kayo mag-email sa votereportph@cp-union.com. And guys, let's be responsible keyboard warriors. Gamitin ang mga hashtag natin, VoteReportPH at Contradaya. Or di kaya mag-fill up ng form sa aming website that will be linked in the description below. O diba? Ang daming ways. Kaya kung may nakita kayong something sus, i-report nyo agad sa amin. Karapatan natin bumoto bilang isang Pilipino malaya sa bansang may demokrasya. So let's vote wisely, and most importantly, let's vote safely.
PWA Pilipinas.
You've earned an AWS certification. Congratulations! Now what? Show your employer, colleagues, and your customers that you've met the bar set by AWS experts. Add your digital badge to your professional profiles and email signature to highlight your skills. Share it on your social feeds to celebrate with your network. And offer verification via email or on your resume. Cloud skills are in demand, and you have them. Share your AWS certified achievement today.
I'm from Singapore.
From Vietnam.
AWS User Group Thailand.
I'm an AWS community builder.
I run the user group in Singapore as a community hero.
I'm an AWS community builder.
I love AWS community.
Go AWS.
I'm so proud that all the group members are very proactive to support each other.
I'm really passionate about making artificial intelligence and machine learning more accessible.
I'm also one of the AWS machine learning heroes around the world.
It's a global, positive and diverse community.
ผมเป็น Amazon Web Service Community Hero ประจำประเทศไทยนะครับ
The love of the technology and the friendship in the community.
Go AWS.
Hi, I'm Zian. At binabati ko po ang ating mga manggagawa ng Happy Labor's Day. Saludo po kaming nasa Vote Report PH sa inyong lahat. Speaking of manggagawa, walong araw na lang at halalan 2022 na. Kaya dapat siguraduhin natin na ang bawat boto ay mabibilang ng maayos o walang anomalya o pandarayang mangyayari sa ating mga balota. Ilan sa mga anomalya na pwede niyong i-report sa amin ay errors ng voting machines, pre-shaded ballots, at pati na rin vote buying o ano pa mang pangampanan na mangyayari sa mismong araw ng halalan. Bawal ang mga yan. So how do you become a reporter? Para mag-report ng kahit anumang anomalya o pandarayang may connection sa election, maaari kayong mag-text sa amin. Send yes or send in your report using the format report, space, content of your report to these following numbers. Pwede rin kayo mag-email sa votereportph@cp-union.com. And guys, let's be responsible keyboard warriors. Gamitin ang mga hashtag natin, VoteReportPH at Contradaya. Or di kaya mag-fill up ng form sa aming website that will be linked in the description below. O diba? Ang daming ways. Kaya kung may nakita mo yung something sus, i-report nyo agad sa amin. Karapatan natin bumoto bilang isang Pilipino malaya sa bansang may demokrasya. So let's vote wisely, and most importantly, let's vote safely.
Hi, I'm Emma from the AWS account and billing support team in Sydney. Sometimes customers ask me what is included in the AWS free tier and how they can use the free tier. Today, I'm going to talk about what you can use in the AWS free tier. Let's get started. As you can see, I'm on the AWS free tier website. The free tier is automatically activated for each new AWS account and it lasts for 1 year. While the free tier is active, you can try out many AWS services for free, which gives you the flexibility to experiment and see if AWS is right for you. Let's go through a few services covered in the AWS free tier. 750 hours of Amazon EC2 Linux, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, or SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, T2 micro instance uses. 750 out of Amazon EC2 Microsoft Windows Server T2 micro instance uses. 5 GB of the standard storage S3. 750 hours of Amazon RDS single AG micro DB instance running MySQL, MariaDB, PostgreSQL, Oracle BYOL, or SQL Server Express Edition. Please note that not all AWS services are covered under the free tier. Check the free tier offering to make sure the services you intend to use are covered. Here are some of the free contributions that we receive from AWS customers. When does the AWS free usage tier expire? The AWS free usage tier expires 12 months from the date you sign up. When your free usage expired, or if your application use exceeds the free usage tier, you simply pay the standard pay-as-you-go service rate. If I don't use all my free usage per month, will it roll over to the next month? No, the AWS free usage tier is applied to your monthly usage, will expire on the first day of the new month, and does not roll over to the next month. How do I know how much I've used and if I've gone over the free usage tier? To see your current and past usage activity by service and region, please log into your Billing and Cost Management dashboard page. Then select Bills in the Billing console. To see your current and past usage activity by service and region, please log into your Billing and Cost Management dashboard page. You can type Billing. It will take you to the Billing and Cost Management dashboard page. Then select Bills in the Billing console. To see previous invoice, select the drop-down menu next to the date. Thanks for watching and happy cloud computing from all of us here at AWS.
Hi, I'm Zian, at binabati ko po ang ating mga manggagawa ng Happy Labor Day. Saludo po kaming nasa Boat Report PH sa inyong lahat. Speaking of manggagawa, walong araw na lang at halalan 2022 na, kaya dapat siguraduhin natin na ang bawat boto ay mabibilang ng maayos o walang anomalya o pandarayang mangyayari sa ating mga balota. Ilan sa mga anomalya na pwede niyong i-report sa amin ay errors ng voting machines, pre-shaded ballots, at pati na rin vote buying o ano pa mang pangampanin na mangyayari sa mismong araw ng halalan. Bawal ang mga yan. So how do you become a reporter? Para mag-report ng kahit anumang anomalya o pandarayang may connection sa election, maaari kayong mag-text sa amin. Send yes or send in your report using the format report, space, content of your report to these following numbers. Pwede rin kayo mag-email sa votereportph@cp-union.com. And guys, let's be responsible keyboard warriors. Gamitin ang mga hashtag natin, VoteReportPH at Contradaya. Or di kaya mag-fill up ng form sa aming website that will be linked in the description below. O diba? Ang daming ways. Kaya kung may nakita mo yung something sus, i-report nyo agad sa amin. Karapatan natin bumoto bilang isang Pilipino malaya sa bansang may demokrasya. So let's vote wisely, and most importantly, let's vote safely.
PWA Pilipinas would like to thank the following: Edukasyon.ph, AWS Siklab Pilipinas, Cloud Developers World Class, Vote Report PH. To everyone that made PWA Pilipinas Live happen, thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Adesito de Guzman, the community lead for PWA Pilipinas, and I'm joined here by a thumbnail of one of our community leads as well, Michael. And welcome to PWA Pilipinas Live Cloud.talks. So tonight we'll be learning how we can build modern apps using containers. But before that, we will be introducing our organization first, PWA Pilipinas. Okay, so we're PWA Pilipinas. We are a community for progressive web app makers, designers, and users here in the Philippines. And you may follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, everywhere if you wanted to learn about our upcoming events. And for that, we made our events and our initiatives much simpler. For our meetup, we have our monthly meetups, and it's called PWA Pilipinas Meetup. So it happens every month, and you can network basically with our community. Next is we also have PWA Pilipinas Live, which is happening right now. Basically, it is our live stream where we invite speakers from all over the world to share about the web, about cloud, and much more. And we also have workshops. Recently, we have our PWA Pilipinas workshop that featured Acha Abe that taught the basics of Figma. And they enjoyed it, and we're most likely going to have a part 2 or another batch of that this June. So stay tuned for that. And so you don't miss all of our events, we have our PWA Pilipinas app that you can get on Google Play, on the Microsoft Store, and as a PWA. Just make sure to visit app.pwapilipinas.org and create your account. And also, we are giving an e-certificate for this event. Just make sure to register to this event. I will also be sending the link in a while in the comment section so you can register and check into the event. So make sure that you check into the event because you can download your certificate afterwards. But of course, make sure to watch us here so you get to learn about the new technology that we're going to showcase tonight. Oh, Michael, you're here na pala. How are you?
Oy, hello once again, dear viewers. Welcome back to PWA Pilipinas. I hope that you will enjoy our session for this evening.
Okay, so let's not wait any further. Let's introduce our speaker. So before we add our speaker on stage, we'll be introducing him first. So you know his bio. So our speaker for tonight is Donnie. He is a software engineer and a self-proclaimed barista, just like me. And is also a cafe racer enthusiast and a senior developer advocate at AWS. With more than 16 years of experience in the technology industry, from telecommunications and banking to even startups, he is now focusing on helping the developers to understand varieties of technology to transform their ideas into execution. Of course, he loves coffee. We love coffee. And any discussion of any topics from microservices, from AI to ML. Please welcome here at the PWA Pilipinas Live, Donnie Prakoso. Hi, Donnie.
Hello, Andre. Oh,
Hi.
Hello, Andre. Hello, Michael. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. How are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. It's crystal
awesome.
clear.
All right.
Okay. If you're comfortable, we can start the discussion.
Definitely. So I already have a couple of demos that I would like to present. So yeah, I'm super excited.
Sure. The stage is yours now.
Thank you so much. Okay. All right. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this meetup and welcome to this session. I believe this is my very first time appearance at PWA Pilipinas. So thank you so much for inviting me. And for today, this session is going to be really exciting as we're going to discuss about modern application. I would like to set a foundation on what is modern application and why do we need to take modular approach on developing application, and then we're going to discuss about containers, because the containers and modular application, they are closely related now, and also how to run containers based application with Amazon ECS using AWS Copilot. So I just want to if so if you have any questions about containers, no matter if you're just getting started or you already an intermediate or advanced developers, please drop them your the questions in the comment box below. I'm going to check it from time to time to see if there's any question or things that you need me to dive deep into. And as mentioned, this session is perfect for beginners or even intermediate users. And I intentionally designed this session for those of you who are just starting out on journey with containers and you are looking for a solution how to run containers on AWS. So a quick introduction about myself. My name is Donnie Prakoso. I am an AWS Senior Developer Advocate covering for ASEAN. And as mentioned by Andre, for the past 16 years, I've been building services and solutions for various industries, from banking, telco to startups. And I love startups, especially for startups. Before I joined AWS, I was a technical advisor for several startups in various verticals, like media entertainment, e-commerce, digital agency, and machine learning-based startups. Most of them were based in Southeast Asia, and a few of them were based in Europe. And my specialization is microservices and event-driven event-driven architecture, and also related to containers and serverless. So if at some point you have a questions related to those fields, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and Twitter. And I also have a YouTube channel where I uploaded all my tutorials over there. And if you want to do a hands-on tutorial, you can just visit my GitHub repo. All right. So after the session, you will have a good understanding on why we need to build with modular approach, and you will also understand essential container services on AWS. You will be able to identify which service that you can use for your development workflow, and talking about workflow and also the toolings. In today's modern development, tools is really important. So in this session, I'd like to share with you a very valuable tool for every developers working with containers, and that is AWS Copilot. So I will guide you on how to use AWS Copilot to deploy and operate your applications into Amazon ECS and AWS Fargate. And if you still have time, I will show you how you can implement CI/CD easily. And if you're not really familiar with those naming AWS services, don't worry. I'm going to do a quick overview on all the services I'm going to cover in this session. And also, talking about demos, I love demos. So I will take you through a step-by-step demos so you know how to deploy a container from your local development into a production-ready environment. So many fun stuff today, a lot of things that we need to discuss. So let's get started. First thing first, why are we here today? So the main theme for today's session is building modern application. And when I built the content at this presentation along with the demos, I asked myself on what and why do we need to build with modern application and what constitutes a modern application. So I'll try to answer it in this session. In a nutshell, modern application is a combination of various areas. The first element is modern technologies, and this includes containers and serverless. The second element is the architectures on how we combine all those technologies into a system and how they can coordinate one to another. The third element is software delivery practices. Basically, is how we can ship our application so it can be used by our customers. And the fourth element is the operational processes. And this means how we keep track of everything so it runs properly. And the goal is to improve how we deliver values to our customers or stakeholders who use our application. And diving deeper into why we need to use modern application, The ultimate goal, as I mentioned, is to deliver value for customers. So we start from the end of the diagram. And we are living in different era compared to what we had before cloud computing. And all of us, we are witnessing a paradigm shift. And many organizations want to win more customers. To win customers, they need to build better products and to release feature faster. And and that means that it requires faster and more frequent experimentation and innovation. They need the ability to focus on differentiating business logic and to decouple software for speed and safety. And and we no longer live in a world with a single database or architectural option. We have many options. And with those kind of options, what we can do is that we can offload the undifferentiated pieces. We can choose the right tool for the job and automate everything. And by doing so, you are building modular applications that allow you to win customers. And not only modernization addresses these issues, but also hits at the root cause, development cultures that prevented us from doing our best work. And what you see on the screen are just some common challenges and the outcomes experienced by our customers during the modernization journey. And we can automate away tedious work and deliver faster. So we can deploy, go from days and weeks to minutes, meaning your time to market is shortened. We can remove overhead by using consistent tooling and processes to do more than just keep the lights on. And deployments are no longer manual, so it frees our team to focus on other activities, such as doing some coding on business logic. And also, one thing that I really like with modern application approach is now we can build security into software development processes and operational activities. So it's not an option now. It's either that you move forward with your application or you enhance your security. It's not longer the case. Now we can move forward with our application and we can make it secure. And your security footprint follows best practices. It's no longer ad hoc. Developers has full visibility into the application in production and can contribute to its evolution proactively. And from the technical perspective, these are really great stuff. It surely improves our workflow, our day-to-day activities, and it making our life easier. And one of those technologies that being adopted by developers in the past years is container. Containers now is considered as one of the modern technology, and the reason why many developers adopted containers because it helps us to manage these challenges, right? So let's talk about containers, and hopefully after this you will understand why many developers prefer to use containers. In this case, I'm using Docker. The reason why I use Docker because it's the most adopted container engine. And let me check. If there's any comments. All right. So if you have any comments or if you are just new to containers and not really understand what Docker is, just let me know in the comment box. I can show you the how it looks like to package your application using Docker, how to build image, and how to run Docker container application. All right. Okay. So back to containers. Um, when we build application, there are a couple of parts that we need to integrate in order to have our application runs properly. And the first thing that we need to have is the runtime engine for our application. For example, if you are have your application run with Python, you obviously need Python. If you run on Node.js, you obviously need Node.js. And if you and also that you can use like a binary files like if you using Go or Rust, right? And then the other thing that you need to run your application is source code. And in most use cases, when you are doing application development, most likely you're going to use libraries and other components, right? And these libraries and other components are your dependencies. And the last element is configuration. When we are developing an application, configuration is often used to store several different variables that we need to pass to a certain environments. And this environment means that it's either that you have a staging environment or production environment or any kind of environments that you need in your use cases. And because there are so many elements when it comes to a running application, um, that this is where the Docker, the containers can help us. And container and Docker here, in this case, a container platform that can help us to run application by abstracting the operating system. So it works by packaging your application along with dependencies, runtime engine, and configuration. And Docker, as the container platform, it acts as an intermediary between your containers and the operating system. And what it means is that with Docker, it makes application deployment flexible. Why? Because you can run containers in any kind of environment. So in short, you package the runtime engine, dependencies, configuration, code, and everything related becomes a container image, which Docker will then run in various environment. So in the context of several different environments, now we can abstract that environment with Docker, where it will run our application. So that means that with Docker, I can run my applications either on my laptop, a staging, production, or other environment. Like in this case, is on premises, right? So that gives us a predictable and consistent deployment of application. And if it works in one environment, it definitely will work in other environment. Now, so that's why container and Docker. But the journey doesn't stop there. And when it comes to running a single container, it's really easy, right? But in reality, we often need to deploy more than one container. It could be tens, hundreds, or thousands that we need to deploy. And especially for those who are working with microservices, this is something that's really relevant to their conditions because it consists of a variety of services. Now, so what are the considerations to run containers in multiple environments in multiple with multiple services, right? So there are two things to emphasize in a situation like this. The first one is that you need to have a mechanism for fast scaling from one to or two containers to 100 containers in a short period of time. Second, you need to know and place where the containers will be allocated in your infrastructure resources. And of course, it's not easy, or I can say that's almost impossible to do all of this manually because you will not want to log in or SSH into each of your machine and run the Docker, right? So we need to have a tool. We need to have a tool that can automate your containers within the set of resources that you have. And this is the right transition for me to take you to the next segment, and that is AWS service that you can use to do development and deploying at scale for container application. And I put here as a different layer. So we need to start from the top service first, which is the management layer. So on management layer, we have container orchestrator. Now, what is the role of container orchestrator? So container orchestrator, its task is to help us to deploy and manage the lifecycle of our containers application. So you probably already heard about Kubernetes, right? Or you probably heard about Nomad or micro Kubernetes, and they are container orchestrator. And there are so many options that we have right now for content orchestrators. And at AWS, we have two services to help you run your containers. And the first one is Amazon ECS. Amazon ECS is perfect for you who want to deploy and operate your container applications easily. And if you like to work with Kubernetes, we also have Amazon EKS if Kubernetes is your preferred flavor. And you also have two options for hosting your containers application. Now, why we need to have hosting? Because the orchestrator is like it's like a software who manage the life cycle of your container application. It doesn't really host or place your container application. It needs to have a place, right? And that's why on the second layer we have hosting layer. Now, there are two options that you can use to place your application. Uh, there are Amazon EC2 and AWS Fargate. If you want to have granular control of your infrastructure, you can use Amazon EC2. It gives you more control of your server clusters and provides a broader range of customization options. But if you want to focus more on your products and less on the operations, you can use AWS Fargate. So AWS Fargate is a serverless containers, right? So with AWS Fargate, you don't need to manage the underlying infrastructures. What you need to do is that you define what you need and pass it to Amazon ECS or Amazon EKS and let AWS Fargate run it. And to be honest, I really love AWS Fargate because it lets us to focus on designing and building application, which is our most important job, instead of managing the infrastructure. And lastly, the Amazon ECR. So Amazon ECR is the service that you can host your container image. Once that you have packaged your Docker containers, you need to have a place where you upload this image centrally. So Amazon ECS or Kubernetes or other container orchestrator, they can pull the image and deploy your application. Right. So that is the role of Amazon ECR. It's a repository for container image. Right. Okay. So now in this session, I'd like to emphasize on how you can get started easily with your container app. So we're going to focus on simplicity, but still giving you the rich features and powerful ability of Amazon ECS. And we're going to integrate with AWS Fargate serverless containers so you can have more time building your apps and not managing your infrastructure. But the first question is how to do that, right? Um, there are so many there are so many things that we need to learn, like how to define task definition, how to define a service on Amazon ECS, how to create cluster, and so on and so forth. So what we need is actually a tool, right? And in this presentation, I would like to introduce you to AWS Copilot. Now, AWS Copilot is not AWS Service. It's a CLI tool that you can interact on your terminal. And AWS Copilot, in my opinion, it will greatly help you to get started with containers. Not only is the best tool for you to get started, but also give you the flexibility to extend your system. So with AWS Copilot, it's no matter that you want to start with a simple application or you want to extend your architecture into microservices, you can do everything with AWS Copilot. So it's pretty amazing tool. And if you're just getting started, right? Let's go back to one step. How to deploy and run application. You probably have all of these questions, like how do I deploy application? How do I extend the system? How do I integrate with CI/CD? How can I test without affecting different environments? And the list goes on. And this actually all of those tasks that you can do with AWS Copilot. So as mentioned, you can see on the left screen, it's a CLI tool, right? AWS Copilot is a CLI tool that you can interact in your terminal, and it enables you to quickly launch and easily manage containers application on AWS. And one thing that I really like about AWS Copilot is it's really intuitive in the way that it provides a simple declarative set of commands, and also it comes with examples and guided experience built in to help you deploy your apps quickly. And one of the advantage of using AWS Copilot is that all AWS best practices are embedded into this tool, right? Doesn't mean that you don't need to learn. Of course, you need to learn all those best practices, but and with AWS Copilot, it's already back in, so it somehow give you like a gut rails on what kind of best practices that you are going to deploy into Amazon ECS and AWS Market, which is really nice, right? So in summary, with Copilot, it's a tool equipped with best practices, so you can have a scalable, reliable, and extensible application with minimum effort. So I love this. So let's go through the demo. And in the next demo, I will show you how to. Okay, so we're going to start with how to install AWS Copilot and how to initialize your first application, and then environment and deploy API. Right. So, all right. So let me check if there's any questions. Okay, so there's no questions yet. If you have questions, just let me know. So to get started with AWS Copilot, obviously that you need to install it. Right? CLI. So, and I really love how we can install AWS Copilot. The reason why, because we can use a brew. I'm not sure it's too small for you, but let me zoom in. So you can use a package managers. I'm using Brew on my Linux and also MacBook, and you can just easily install it with a Brew install AWS/tab/copilot -CLI. And if you somehow, for some reason, you cannot use Homebrew, you can also just download the binary here. It's available for a Mac, x86, ARM, and also Windows. So you can just download it and install with these comments, right? So and then the next thing, and now we have AWS Copilot CLI installed. And what I want to do next is that I want to deploy an application. And before we do that, let me share with you what is our application is. So um, our application is a simple API that's going to convert Markdown input into HTML output. So if you haven't heard about Markdown, it's basically a markup language. So all of writers, they can just focus on their text and not worrying about the formatting, right? So in this case, uh, you can see that I'm going to have this API have text as an input. It's going to be a Markdown input, and then it's going to give the output into an HTML, and then it's also going to save the data into DynamoDB. So we can have a nice tracking on what kind of processes that already been done with our API. So let me try to build it first. So I just want to let you know how it works. Right. I think it's running on 1990. Yes, 1990. App Markdown. Okay, so I'm running. I just did packaging with Docker, and I'm currently running with Docker Run. And if I open up a new shell and then I just hit this this path, you can see that's an OK, right? That's an OK right here. So that means that our apps works properly. So now I just want to show you if I pass the input, which is text equals to like hello, like this, right? And then what's going to do? Oops, so sorry. My bad. Oh, Okay, so basically it doesn't work because it's already integrated with our application. But what we know at this point is that our application run properly because if I hit this command, it's going to hit this endpoint, which is the health check, right? So that's fine. But and then what we need to do now is we need to deploy this application into Amazon ECS, right? Let me now. The first thing that we want to do is that we need to initialize the application with Copilot. And to do that, what we can do is just that we can run Copilot in it. Now, with Copilot in it, it's actually creating an application on Amazon with AWS Copilot. And once that you run this command, Copilot in it is going to create a folder called Copilot here. And then you can see there's a file called workspace. And this is basically what you want to name your application. I name it as demo markdown. Right. Now, once that you already initialize your Copilot application, the next thing that you want to do is to create an environment. So environment is where your application runs. So in this case, you probably want to run like two environments at least. It's a staging where you do the testing and release a new feature for your application, and the other one is the production, is the stable version that you can provide with your customers. So with Copilot, you can easily create an environment using command env here. And you can see that I have two environments set up, which is staging and production. And if you want to create another environment, you can just run Copilot env in it. Okay. And don't worry if you don't understand all of this. You just need to run Copilot env in it. And then you can see that the Copilot is asking you what is the environment's name. So this is nice a guided experience if we're not really familiar with all of those parameters, right? Now, once that you have your application and you have your environments configured with AWS Copilot, the next thing that you want is actually to deploy your application, right? All of your applications, in this case, is the Markdown API, is considered as service in AWS Copilot. So what we want to do is that we want to run Copilot service, and if we and there are a couple of available comments like initialize in it. It creates a new service in application, and then it could list all the services. It could deploy, it could delete, it could show. And in this case, I've already deployed the application. So if I run Copilot service show, it gives me all the details on the deployed application on my Amazon ECS cluster. So this is amazing. Right. And if you want to create a new service, just run Copilot service in it. And then it's going to ask you, what do you want to name the service? And then it's going to ask you about the type. It's either a request-driven web service, or you want to run your API, which is a public API endpoint, or you want to have a backend service, which is private, or you just want a worker service that is going to consume the queue or events and is running on the background, right? So if you choose the load balance web service, is going to automatically trying to find the available Docker file on your application, which is really nice. In this case, I have 3 Docker files ready, which is sitting on the folder Markdown, text, and web. And you can also enter a custom path for your Docker file, or you can use an existing image on Amazon ECR, right? So, and then one that you have already configured your service, what happened next is that Oh, I have a question from Christian Manolito. Other than those you have discussed, do you have other suggested learning resources that can be useful for beginners like me? Yes, I do. I'm going to share with you all the resources at the end of the session. All right. So once that you have configured your service with Copilot, it's going to create a files, and that is in this case I'm going to open Markdown, and this is manifest. And what you can see is that it's ISC file. It's a manifest file. This is the implementation of infrastructure as code. And this is one of the best practice when you developing your application. Why? Because you don't want to manually configure all those resources manually, right? You want to have everything automated. So what we need is that we need to create a file that can be readable and processed by the machine. And that's basically the summary of infrastructure as code. And in this case, we have service called Markdown with type load balance web service. We have this HTTP path and also health check with the image. We also have the flexibility to control the resources like what CPU, memory, count, and then if we can execute into the SSH into the containers application. And we also have like a couple of environment variables that you can set up for your services, which is really nice. And then once that you have already done with your service, to deploy it, you can just run Copilot Service Deploy, and it's going to deploy everything into Amazon ECS and AWS FireGate. And as you can see here, I have two stagings, right? Two environments. We have staging and production, and we can see there are two services running. And on this production, we also have two services running. And this is one of the another best practices on building application. If you have multiple application environment, make sure that you have as similar resources as similar as possible resources on those environments. Why? Because you need to test what happens if your application behave this way or that way, so you can have this like an you can solve any kind of troubles happening in your application environment. So this is really nice. And now, once that it's deployed, what you can do is that you can just check the status. Sorry, Copilot service status, right? And then I'm going to test the status on Markdown, which is staging. You can see that it's running properly. The health check passes, so it's healthy. And what does it mean is that you can have all this information on your terminal, and that means that you can control everything, every aspects of your applications in your terminal. That's super convenient, right? So let's test it out. I'm going to test this application, and I want to see the endpoint, right? Because if you want to test the application, we need to have the API endpoint. See, we can have it here. So this is the environment URL for the staging, and this one is for the production, right? And then we also have a couple of variables here, starting on what AWS region, Copilot application name. You can also define your own environment variables with Copilot. So now, if I test this API, so this is the Markdown input, right? And then what we can have here is the HTML output. So you can see there's a H1 tag. Now, and that means that the application, the API, processed the request successfully. And also, on this application, I also define a database, which is a DynamoDB. And when we build applications, more than often that we need to have the database to store our application, right? So here in this case, I have the table deployed, and if I explore the table items and I just run it, see, this is the latest request state, which is hello. You can see it here. Right. This is our last request. Now the next question is that how can I configure a database for my application and provide the access easily with AWS Copilot. Now, Copilot has another command called Copilot Storage. So, with Copilot Storage, you can integrate your application with database. That is NoSQL, which is Amazon DynamoDB, which I just showed to you, and SQL databases with Amazon Aurora. And the last one is that if you want to store any kind of objects, you can use Amazon S3 buckets. So let me give you an example. If you want to add storage, you just run Copilot Storage in it, and then choose the service that you want to integrate with this storage. In this case, I'm going to use Markdown. And here we have these options that what kind of storage services or databases that we would like to integrate with our application. Let's say that I want to use Amazon S3. And then it's going to ask us about the name of this S3 bucket and so on and so forth, right? And you have to know, this is another best practice of AWS Copilot, that whatever storage or resources that you define with AWS Copilot is going to be only accessible by that particular service. So if I create a DynamoDB table for service Markdown, the other service, which is text, is not going to be able to access that DynamoDB table. And this is a really good best practices because it provides a protection not to allow any other service to access the backing resources of services, right? And yeah, so what else? One last thing. With if you want to if you running your application, obviously that you want to see the logs of your application, right? So with Copilot, you can do that as well. And what you can do is just that you can run Copilot service logs, right? And then you can choose which service. In this case, I'm choosing Markdown, right? So we can see there's an error on this service, and this is a really nice way on seeing what kind of problem our application getting into in one terminal. And if you want to follow, like if you want to continuously watch the logs, you can just run Copilot service logs, and then just add the flag follow. And let's say that I want to the service text, right? And then it's going to give us the latest logs of our application, which is really nice. Right. Any questions? Oh, I don't think so. Right. Okay. So, moving on. So we just deploy our API with AWS Copilot, right? Oh, I forgot to mention this is the diagram, right? So yeah, so we just did deploying a client, application load balancers, and service Markdown. And the next one is more interesting. Why? The reason is that there's another best practices baked into AWS Copilot, and when it comes to, and that's called a service discovery, which is something that I found is super easy to implement with AWS Copilot. But if you do it manually, well, it's going to be a really challenging. The reason is the case is like this. So when you build application, in this case, I'm building an API, right? That is not the only service that we want to deploy. And obviously, we also want to deploy another service, like probably in this case is web, or another service like a text on another API. Now, Now, something that if you just getting started with building application and you're trying to architecting your overall system, one thing that you need to know is that one of the key points of having a good system is that you are able to have those services communicate to another. So in this case, if I have service markdown, it needs to be able to communicate easily with service web or service text or any kind of services. And it's challenging in a way that there's no way that we hard coded all those IPs. Right? When you deploy application, you have IP of your machine. Yes, that's right. But there's no way that we're going to hard code those because it's going to scale up and down, and it's going to we're not going to be able to guess or register to all those IPs, right? So one approach to implement discovering service is called service discovery. So service discovery is how that one service would be able to identify, hey, there's a new service just been deployed, and you can access it with this IP, right? So let me show you how to do that. So in this case, let me see. Okay, so I'm here. So in this case, I have another service which is called tags. Yep. So tags is basically another API that I use to detect to detect the dominant language, and also to do like a detect entities of any kind of text passed into this API. And it also needs to talk to markdown service, the service that we just deployed, in order to get the output in markdowns, right? So the problem is that the service text or any kind of service here, in this case, I have markdown, reports, text, and web. They don't know how to communicate each other. And if I run Copilot Service Show here, we have a special segment called Service Discovery. Right. And what does it means? It means that AWS Copilot already configured a namespace, an address that we can access internally. This one, you cannot access it from public. It can only access internally by your services by accessing the HTTP on this port. So if this if the service text or another service want to access the markdown service, they can just call the HTTP at this address, right? And this everything is provided with you as one of the built-in features on AWS Copilot, which is really amazing. Right. Now, what time is it now? Okay, so I think we still have 5 more minutes. Sorry, Andre. Sorry, Mike. But I promise this is going to be the last demo. And another thing that when you building application, the very first thing that you probably need to set up is CI/CD. So CI/CD is basically on how that you integrate your repository of your source code. In this case, I have my repository here. This is a tutorial called pipelines, which is all a repo where I put all my codes for this application. And every time I make any changes, it's going to trigger deployment into Amazon ECS and AWS Fargate, right? And with AWS Copilot, you don't need to understand all of those dynamics or best practices on building CI/CD. What you just need is just to run Copilot pipeline in it. So with Copilot pipeline in it, it's going to create a CI/CD for you. In this case, I've already created one, and and you can also integrate Copilot pipeline with GitHub, Code Commit, and Bitbucket. So this is really convenient. And what it does is that when you initialize a pipeline with Copilot, it's going to create you two files. The first one is the build spec, which is the script when where it's going to build your application. Um, Everything here is not is generated by Copilot, so you don't need to like a if you're new, you don't need to make any changes. But if you want to make do some tests or unit tests or integration, you can put it here. All right. Another file that is going to be generated by Copilot is pipeline YAML. So pipeline YAML is actually defining the flow of your application on how it should deploy your application. And in this case, that once that you deploy your code, your pipeline is going to use AWS Code Pipeline in this case, and it's going to integrate nicely with Code Build as well. So you can see here that it's going is this is all the pipeline that you're going to get from AWS Copilot. You get the source stage, which is retrieving all the code from the GitHub repo. Is going to build your applications into a container image, and then it's going to deploy to your environments. In this case, is a staging and also production. And so and then this is really convenience because every time that you make any changes, it's going to let me see, it's going to trigger the deployment automatically. So let me try to. So I don't know what to add. Probably that I just want to return okay, okay. Okay. So I'm just trying to change the application and test the pipeline. Right. So it's basically pushing to the GitHub repo, and you can see that now the source is running. That means that it's triggered the deployment automatically, which is really great. All right, and yeah, so the question from Christian, the learning resources that I have for you is that if you want to learn everything from scratch about Copilot containers, you can just go to Copilot.talks. This is basically a website that I designed for you to get started easily with containers. And not only for beginners, it's also have couple of resources where if you want to dive into more advanced patterns like pub sub, you can have it here. And if you want to learn about the other stuff, you can just go to aws.amazon.com/developer. It actually has a nice learning path that our team curate and build for you. Like for example, if you want to launch a web app, deploy a container, I have this. And if you want to run like a Kubernetes, you can have it here. This one you can get started with Amazon EKS. This is something that I actually authored. We're going to provide you with a nice foundation on how that you can build container-based web application using Amazon EKS and AWS CDK. Right. So okay. So right. So do we still have Q&A time?
Yes, definitely.
Lovely.
I believe that some of them are still overwhelmed,
digesting,
because the concept is really new. Yeah, especially here in the Philippines, that containers aren't really still, the thing.
I see. Okay.
That's why it's like Ken B said, like it's new to them, especially for web front end developers. So actually, it's nice that we get to talk about it here, because they get to explore new technologies that's really used in the industries, right?
Yes, yes. So that's a really good point, and I just want to reiterate that, Andre, that containers is becoming more essential. And I've talked to a lot of developers in ASEAN region. They ask about how to get started with containers and how their companies, it requires them to think about containers, and it's really changing the perspective on how we run applications. In the past, we used to have a source code, right? And then we have a host to run that kind of source code. It's either that you run it with Node.js or using Python, and but with containers, it's now a container image. It's immutable.
Yes.
That's something that you cannot change, and it changes everything.
Okay,
And
there's
yeah,
also a comment from
I heard of Kubernetes, but not so much. Okay, so you have a friend. I'm also pretty new at Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is basically a container orchestrator. So let's say that you have an application that you want to package, right? That is where the Docker or any kind of container engine like Container D comes into the picture. But your application is only a package image, and we need to run it, and we also need to host it somewhere, right? And that is the job of container orchestrator. We have many options, not only Kubernetes. So don't limit your options on Kubernetes. Kubernetes is really nice if you want to learn about how container orchestration works. But if you want to get started with containers in no time, I really recommend you to use Amazon ECS. It's just really simple, especially with AWS Copilot. You can just deploy easily. Um, yeah, but if you want to learn Kubernetes, as I mentioned, there's a nice learning path that we have provided. You can go to aws.amazon.com/developer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
we
I
do
think
have
I need to learn from
yeah.
Ken B, because he mentioned that he is a front end developer. I just learned about Webpack a week ago, and I still don't understand what is this for. Webpack, Grunt. There's so many things
Yeah.
in different areas. So this is really nice, because I hope that someday that I can learn from all of you on how to build progressive web apps.
Soon. We do have introduction to PWAs almost every month. So if you're interested.
Every month, nice. I'm going to be one of your attendees, Andre.
Okay, so we do have some questions from the team. First
Okay, sure.
is what's the benefits of using containers than using a VM or shared FTPs? Because basically that's how people serve sites from like before.
I see. So I guess in this case that you are building a web, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I like that kind of question. So let me show it to you. So, how can I demonstrate this? Okay, so for example, let's start with the VM first. I'm going to create just a dummy one. Because I think it's easier for me to explain it with demo. So let's say that I am building a web application. It's not fancy. It's just a hello PW, and then I'm going to close it, right? Oops, sorry. This one. Right. So I have a file here, right? So this file I can share it everywhere. I have many options, and one of the option is using FTP, right? And if I use FTP, I can transfer this to other machines. Now, there are two problems on using FTP. The first one, if you're still using FTP, at least that you need to move to SFTP. right? Or even SCP, because FTP is not longer secure. The other disadvantage of using using FTP is that you need to manually configure where to upload this file to other machine, right? And that is where you need CI/CD, right? But that will be for other cases.
Yeah.
Now, the next question is that when to use containers and when to use virtual machines. Look, let's say that I have this file indexed to HTML, right? And then I want to run this file. And then, so to run this file, I need to logging into the remote machine server and then run this command, right? And then the result is that and the result is that I can access it here. Right. Now, the biggest disadvantage of using virtual machines instead of container is that there will be no guarantee that this application, this a simple index.html file, can be run in other machine. Why? Because it has dependencies. In this case, I'm running on Python. Right. So what if the case in the other application, it doesn't have any Python? So that means that you need to log into your SSH machine again, and then you need to install the record dependencies and libraries and so on and so forth. So this is what I meant about the consistency of deployment. But if we use containers, like in this case is this Copilot lines. In this case, I have this. I think I have this application, right? Web. Sorry, this is the. Yeah. So this is the right one. So if I have this this application and I want to use a container, I can just build this as a app web, and then what I'm going to have is that I'm going to have a container image that I can run consistently anywhere. Right. So this is one of the advantage of using containers, and I'm a hardcore fans of containers. Why? Because it's a really amazing way that's going to improve your development workflow. So if you still using like a virtual machines, I think that's fine. But eventually, that you need to move to containers, because if your application works in one machine and it doesn't work in different machine, it's going to be a big problem, and it's going to be hard for you to trace and debug. Hope that helps. Does that answer your question, Andre?
Yeah, I guess that answers the question. And it's also good because if there's a problem with the one you built, you can just roll back.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. Okay, I guess there's another question from one from Baron. Can we have Copilot perform container checks in test before deploying to the target environment?
Amazing. I love that kind of question, Baron. So the question is that can we have like a check and test? In this case, I think is part of unit testing and integration testing or security testing. So let me show you how. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is that so just to give a context, test in this case is part of CI/CD. So it's part of continuous integration, to be exact, because it's going to build the application and do all of those testing. So like for example, I have this back to our application. The first thing that you need to do with Copilot is that you just run Copilot pipeline in it, right? So it's going to start a bootstrap pipeline for you. And the next thing, once you successfully run this command, is that Copilot is going to generate two files, and that is build spec and also pipeline. Now, to do unit testing, or to do the unit testing, you can put them into the build spec. Here in this case, you can just run your tests. You can do like any kind of testing. If on Python, you can just use PyTest. It's going to run, and if on other languages, you can use just what are the testing unit that I used recently? I forgot its name. But you can just easily run your run test comments in this stage. So what it means that before it's going to deploy to your application, your test needs to be successfully run. If it's failed, it's not going to deploy to the staging. Okay. Mm, and that is for the unit testing. But how about the integration testing? In this case, like you have web, you have another service and API, a lot of stuff that you need to be able to integrate all of those. So to add the integration testing, you can use the pipeline YAML here, and then you can use the test comment here. So let me open up. So you can just do the test comment here. Now, the reason why for the integration testing needs to be run on the pipeline instead of build stage is that we can only test the integration between all of the services once it's successfully deployed. Right. So in this case, I'm going to have the test comment for staging environment, and only if it's successfully run, we're going to deploy into production. And also in this case, I have this requires approval true, which means that it's not going to have our approval before it's going to deploy to the production. So if I go the code pipeline here, you can see that it's successfully built and deployed to staging. Here it's waiting for our approval. So it's not going to affect the production environment where your customers use your application, and it's usually it is one of the best practices that you need to integrate with your application, and you can just review, and then you can just put some comment, and then you can do reject or approve. That's it. Hope that helps,
Okay.
Baron.
Yeah. Probably let's go to the last question. So this is from Christian. So where can we contact you if we want to invite you on one of their events?
Please do. You can reach out to me on Donnie Prakoso on Twitter and LinkedIn. I usually open LinkedIn, and usually LinkedIn. I think that's the best way to reach out to me. I recently also opened Copy Time, which is a one-on-one discussion with me. I'm going to send it over the link after this event because I don't have it handy. And also before I forgot, if you want to learn about the other content that I've developed, you can just go to my GitHub repo, Donnie Prakoso Content Dash Repo, where I'm going to upload all those PPT, all those demo on this repo so you can easily learn.
Okay. Right. Michael, do you have any questions?
Donnie, I really learned a lot regarding how we can
awesome. Thank you so much, Michael.
In our developing our applications as well, and hopefully we would be inviting you again for our future events.
Definitely. I love presenting at your event.
And hopefully we could persuade more developers and more students to build using containers, right?
Yeah, because I believe in 2 years' time, it's the same what happened when VM was introduced. It was our first go-to, in 2 years' time, containers will be our first go-to. So I think it's really give benefits for everyone to learn about containers from now on. You don't need to be like a really advanced in the containers. At least that you know how to package and run your containers easily. I think that's more than enough. But nevertheless, I think it's really good timing to start to learn about containers.
Speaking of start, especially many of our viewers are actually students. Are there any free plans that students can utilize so that they can at least try building with containers on AWS?
So I don't have that kind of resources at the moment, but what I can do is that probably that we can work together on providing credits. So these credits going to help a lot of newbies to learn about the like a lot of services from AWS, because it's going to subset the billing with the amount of the credit. So that's something that we need to discuss about, Andre and Michael. But that's definitely something that I would love to help you with.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
guess that's for Q&A. Any last words or tips for especially with students that are overwhelmed with new technologies that's coming?
Right. Okay. So I think this is one of from my experience that I know that's a lot of services, that a lot of technologies happening in our space at the moment. But my advice is that don't start with those technologies, but start with your own projects. Like for example, if you are a front end developer, you probably want to start with building a to-do list that's going to save into a database. You will be amazed on how many lessons that you will learn when you're building your to-do list project. So my suggestion is that start with a problem, start with your own ideas. If you're still a student, you need to build your portfolio, and the only thing that you can do build your portfolio is by working on as many as projects as you can. Like you probably want to start to-do list, or you want to start a live streaming, or you want to start like a building a mobile application. There are so many things that we can do right now, and yeah, start from there. You will be amazed on how many lessons that you will going to learn throughout your journey.
Okay. So once again, thank you, Donnie, for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Andre. Thank you so much, Michael, for having me here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope that we will be seeing each other soon.
And if you want to follow Donnie, is over social media.
Yes, and please visit my YouTube channel. Hopefully, you like the content that I have. If you have any suggestions, you can just request it on the comment box.
Okay, so before we end or before we let you go, here's some of the comments. No, Ken said he's more interested of learning containers now.
Yes, mission accomplished.
And John said,
Thank you, everyone.
And Joshua also said, "Thank you, Sir Donnie and PWA Pilipinas. Definitely
Glad to hear
learned new
that.
things
Thank you.
today." Okay, once again, thank you, Donnie, for giving us your time. Okay, before we end,
Thank you so much.
Okay, so before we end the program, for those that wanted to receive their e-certificates, just make sure to register and check in to the app. Just visit app.pwphilippines.org or via the comment, the link that we've sent to the comment. So just make sure to register and check in. And then once that's done, you can download your certificate. And also, we wanted to get your feedback. Did you enjoy the program for this evening? Just make sure to scan that QR code or visit go.edukasyon.ph /BCAWS feedback. And I believe that we're going to give $200 of AWS credits as a raffle for that. So make sure to fill that feedback form. Okay. Do you have any last words, Michael, before we end the show?
Hey guys, don't forget to follow our Facebook, our social media accounts. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I think YouTube, right, Andre? Don't forget to visit our website, pwapilipinas.org, and let's thank our speaker, no, for giving us knowledge about the use of containers.
Okay, so with that, we're going to end the program now. Hope to see you on our next event, so just make sure to visit the app so you can see our latest events.
All right.
So I guess that's
see you
bye.
once again. Bye-bye. See you once again at PWA
Pilipinas.
PWA Pilipinas would like to thank the following: Edukasyon.ph, AWS Siklab Pilipinas, Cloud Developers World Class, Vote Report PH. To everyone that made PWA Pilipinas Live happen, thank you.
You've earned an AWS